How's it going, you guys? It's Scott with Everyday Home Repairs, and today I want to show you how to extend out a roof line. I'm going to add about 10 more feet to this 12 by 16 modern shed roof. It is a single slope lean-to design, and this project is a conversion of the storage shed we built here into a home office, and this is kind of a mega project. Now, we already went through and we did a retaining wall project to get a 20-foot by 30-foot flat pad in a pretty sloped yard, and then went into pouring the concrete pad for which this 12 by 16 modern shed is built on. Now, that was a two-phase pour. We started off with a classic concrete mixer from Harbor Freight. A lot of homeowners have purchased those over the year, and it is a great value. But then also tried out a rental option, which was the mud mixer, and that is quite a bit faster way to pour concrete and to get your pad poured. Then we went through a full build series of a pretty large storage shed. It has 8-foot walls on the back side, 10-foot walls on the front side with 4 transom windows, each of those being 10 inches by 36 inches. And really it finished off just as a nice storage shed. But now we're going into kind of the full conversion into what is called the Solar Shed 2.0. Now, in the past, we've shown an off-grid shed. It was a simple 8x12 kit from Home Depot, but then we installed 200 watts of solar in a ground mount configuration and a 400 watt panel on the shed roof that all ran into an EcoFlow Delta 2 that gave us plenty of power to plug in our battery-powered lawn equipment, some lights inside, and then also a security camera from U5. But this guy is gonna be a completely different beast, almost the equivalent of an off-grid home, where we're gonna fill the entire roof line with solar panels, as this is probably the best spot for sunlight year-round in my yard, but also a very capable EcoFlow Smart Home Panel 3, which has 32 different spots for circuit breakers and will be powered by their new Delta Pro Ultra. Now, if all this doesn't make sense, stay tuned to the channel, subscribe to the channel. We'll have more videos coming out for this complete build. But today, let's go ahead and work through extending out our roof line, getting that all supported so I can park my 25 horsepower Kubota underneath a roof and give me some more function for this shed. So the way I'm gonna extend out this roof line is I'm gonna tie into the existing structure here with a 2x6 header. Now that's gonna be 2 pieces of 2x6 with some 1/2-inch sheathing in the middle. And then we're gonna put that right into some of the structure on our existing shed. And I already got a bit of a jump start. You can see the blue siding is the standard LP smart siding. Perfect siding for a storage shed. And then you'll see green zip board coming in. Now that's because we're gonna heat and cool this space. So the zip board gives you your sheathing and also a water barrier in one. So it's much more ideal when you're insulating a space. Then I needed to take off this 8-inch soffit, and I left my roofing deck in place, and then I needed to cut out in this back wall here and also my front wall the exact dimensions for my 2x6 header, and I just used an oscillating tool with a demo blade that can cut through wood and nails to get all that cut out. So then I can go ahead and fit in that header and have some support on my shed side. And then let's look at the support that we're gonna have on the other side. So I'm gonna use these footings that I poured a few months back. I used them for a couple different projects, like some solar trackers we were testing and such. But these are big old chunks of concrete and will be perfect for a footing on a 6x6 post here on the back side of my shed, and the same on the front side. Now check your frost line. Mine's only about 12 inches deep here, so I am well past this, and these will work perfectly for my use case. I'm setting these about 8 foot off of the wall itself, and then I will be making the headers about 10 foot long to give a little bit of an overhang past this post right here. So let's go ahead and jump in, make up our headers, and start to position all these components so we can start getting the structure up and in place. Now I'll start off by ripping down 5 1/4 inch wide strips from this zip board. Any 1/2-inch OSB or plywood would work. I just need those strips so that our headers or our beams are exactly the right width, because we'll have 2 of these 2x6s, and make sure that you actually measure out 10 feet. If you get 10-foot board, that doesn't mean it's exactly 10 feet. Usually it's about 1 inch off. So you're going to want to measure that and trim it to exact overall length, and then put those strips between your 2x6s, getting everything lined up, cinching down one side, going to the other, and then getting everything lined up, and go ahead and drive all your nails through. I'm just using some 3-inch nails that will then bond this together. Remember, you can use something like a construction adhesive in the middle as well, which might give you a little bit more strength, but I am confident with just these nails here. And then here's our two 10-foot long beams or headers that will carry the roof load from the old shed to the 6x6 post that will get in place now. So I'm just driving 3/8 of an inch holes and then blowing those out so I can drive some Simpson Strong Titan HD 1/2-inch anchors down, and then that will hold our brackets so I can start placing the 6x6 pressure treated posts. So I'll drive 4 of those in each location, securing that bracket down, and then once we get those in place, driving them with the impact driver, then I'll put these posts. Now, if you've ever picked up a 6x6 pressure treated post, depending on how much water is still in it, these things can be pretty darn heavy. This back wall is 8 foot tall, and you can see how I'll trim it here in a second. I'm using a torpedo level. It is better to get a 4-foot level so you can make sure everything is plumb. And I'm just going to secure the post to the bracket with a few lags here. This is not the permanent setup. I'm going to drive some carriage bolts through in addition to the screws, but it'll hold it in place while we get our 2x6 headers or the beams exactly where we want them. And then I start cutting out the tops of these beams, and then that will start bringing everything together. Now this is a 10-footer on the other side, quite a bit more heavy, but I'm doing the same process, and you might need some composite shims on the base to get everything plumb, and then you can drive your temporary screws in place, where then we can move on to positioning those headers. So we'll start off with the low side here, and I'll just go ahead and carefully place it into the shed side and then bring it up, grabbing my 4-foot bubble level so I can make sure I know exactly where level is, and then mark that with my carpenter's pencil on this 6x6 post. Now, why I'm doing that is I want to know exactly where I need to cut, and I'll just use a speed square to make all my other lines that I'm going to cut out. I'm cutting out a chunk here at that line, and then it's also going to be 3.5 inches thick, which is the thickness of the beam. This is the best practice when you're trying to support a beam, is to notch out your post, whether it's a 4x4 or a 6x6 like this, where then the load just sits on the post opposed to sitting on fasteners like lags. And overall, pretty clean cut, even with the combination of circular saw and the Sawzall. So we'll go ahead and put that beam in place. Again, being careful because it's not attached on the one end, and I have my about 2-foot overhang. I'll tap that into the shed side. Once I'm confirmed that that is in place and level, now I can go back and I'm going to temporarily attach this after plumbing up the 6x6 with just one lag, making sure everything stays in place. And then on the shed side, I'm using the Simpson Hurricane screws. These are 6 inches long, and you'll see links in the description for these different products if you need them for your own project. Now let's go to our high side, and specifically why I'm extending out the roof line exactly like this. There are other ways. Just doing a lean-to, which slopes out towards the Kubota tractor, would be the easiest, but I need the room. I need the height on the low side at least 91 inches, and then that will clear the rollover protection bar on my Kubota, so I don't have to fold it down, and it'll just be convenient to back the tractor right under the roof. And then also I'll be able to put solar panels all along one single slope and keeping the install clean. So cutting out this taller, it's about 10-foot tall 6x6 post, get that notched out just like the other one. And then we'll go ahead and put that beam in place like last time and just make sure everything looks good, tapping it into the shed side, confirming our level, securing it with one lag, and then go ahead and use those Simpson Hurricane screws, sinking that into the shed side. Now I'll go ahead and use the rafter that we removed from the soffit. This one is cut to the exact length I need, so I want to use it as a reference, and I'll set that on the beams so I can mark what's called the Birdsmouth cut, both on the low side and also on the high side. Now these cuts are critical because this will help you get a little bit more surface area to sit on your beams opposed to just one small point. I usually cut these with a circular saw and then finish those cuts off with a jigsaw to keep them nice and clean. So I'll cut the 2 Birdsmouth on this rafter that we took off our old shed, and then I'll use that as a template. Now, if you guys don't know about these measurements and it's not really making sense, you can check the link in the description or this QR code and it'll take you over to Everyday Shed. And that is all about DIY shed building. We have free plans, we have more intensive premium plans, which is like a plan in your hand, help you through an entire build. And specifically this 12x16 modern shed was our last project, where you can get the free plan, you can get a 3D model, you can get the premium plans, and we'll even have some different products here soon to help you out with your shed builds. So it's really your one-stop shop for DIY shed building. Now I'm putting these rafters all in place. These are 16-inch on center, and I'm sinking 3 toenail nails 3 inches long in each one of the beams. And then I'll go ahead and just work those across. And then once I'm putting my decking on, I'll confirm that I have a consistent 16-inch all the way along, because I have a little bit of a warp in some of these different rafters. So next up, we'll put the fascia board on our low side, just using a clamp for an extra set of hands while I tack that in place and check the level, and then start driving 3 nails per rafter through the fascia board. Now this fascia board, just matching up, it's a 2x6, and then I'll be able to use my aluminum fascia to kind of finish that off just like we did on the shed. Now on the high side, I'm just using a scrap piece of wood to kind of, again, give me an extra set of hands while I level everything out. A little higher on the side, so you want to make sure you're safe up on your ladder. Now once you have your fascia boards in place, now it's time for the decking. I'm using zip board. I really like the zip system because it gives you a sheathing or deck like this on a roof, and then it also gives you that water membrane where you can seal it up, and I don't need tar paper or a synthetic underlayment. I'm just going to use the zip board and the seam tape to get everything sealed up, and then I can go and start with my drip edge and then the starter strip for the shingles. Now we'll finish everything off. Do make sure you clean everything up and then go back through, and I'm even taping underneath the old edge because I want to make sure that's watertight. So here's our finished product with the deck and all the seam tape in place. So now it's time for us to start splicing in our shingles. You are not going to butt it up just straight right on that edge. Put your drip edge on your lower side here. And usually this is pretty quick work. I will cut with some tin snips right on that corner and then turn the corner with a continuous piece. And then I'll load up my shingles. I should be able to get this done with 4 bundles and then finish off the drip edge on the side. Do not put your drip edge on the top quite yet. For a lean-to roof like this, the drip edge for a top side will actually go on top of the shingles, and then we'll seal it off with 100% silicone. Now starting off, I'm doing the starter strip, and I want the starter strip to actually go under the old architectural shingles to make sure I don't have stacked seams where water might get through. So once I have that, then we'll roll that out all the way across and then cut it flush with our drip edge, starting our first course. The first course here will just be a continuation. You'll see that is not going to be how it is for all the other ones, but every about 5th course, it's just going to be a continuation, and you don't have to pull out any old shingles. Here's where you got to get your flat bar. You just got to start working up those courses, and you're working up 4 different lengths. There's 2 that are shorter and 2 that are longer. Mostly for architectural shingles, you usually have 5 different lengths of shingles that help to stagger your seams. So just take your time here. This is the most tedious part because you don't want to damage the shingles that are going to stay in place, and you need to break loose that tar seal at the bottom because a lot of that you want to reseal onto the new shingles that you'll be putting in place. I usually did about 5 courses at a time, and then once I had those pulled out, then I could take my new shingles, and you can see now that is not on the edge, it's a different length, and start working that across. So we'll go ahead and continue to work through this, but one correction I do want to make is when you're going across, we're on our high side heel here of the actual nailer strip. So you do want to stay more within the middle, and then I was doing 4 nails, 4 to 6. It is depending on your region, and also different people will tell you different things. Check the manufacturer. If you're in a high wind region, you might want to favor a few more. We can go within 1 inch here of the end. This would be a 5 pattern, hitting 1 in the middle and then finishing off at the end. And what you can see is if we don't go on the high side like we did here, you're going to catch the course below. So now this course below is going to have 1 in the actual nailer strip, and then also one that's going through the top nailer strip here on the course above and going through the bottom. So that's just going to be a better install for your shingles. So let's go ahead and splice through this entire roof and then get our fascia board on, and we should be close to finish. So pressing through, you should only take a couple hours to get this many shingles on your roof, and a single slope like this is a great first roof to do as a DIY project. There's no complex angles or valleys or anything you gotta navigate, so it's just a great way to start off. And remember, if you're doing something like this, your drip edge would go on the top side, finishing everything off. And then any of those nail holes, and this also goes for ridge cap if you ever have nail holes on that last piece, you do want to use a high quality silicone and just go ahead and spread that all over the nails to make sure we don't have any leaks in the future. Now with the fascia here, I'm using an aluminum 6-inch wide. It goes really well with a 2x6. Now don't push it all the way up to the bottom, because these are usually used where you would have vinyl or aluminum soffit underneath, so it gives you a nice little channel there to mount that. So you should have a little gap if you're like me and you don't have any soffit and you just have your rafters wide open. Now the one thing I would do differently is I'd put that bottom one on first, and then the top should be overlapping. Just helps you with water. You always want the high side to be on top. So overall, super happy with the end product. The tractor fits perfectly into its spot. Now this brings me one step closer, but I got quite a bit of work more to do on this Solar Shed 2.0. If you want to see the original 12x16 storage shed, check out this video right here. I'll walk you through the complete build and give you a lot more information if that's a project you have in your future. Now, if you're starting to research storage sheds, do you want to do a DIY? Do you want a metal? Do you want a plastic? What about buying one? You can check out Everyday Shed. We got a ton of different videos, and it's totally focused on storage sheds to get you guys the information you need and make sure you're making a smart purchase. So thanks for joining me on this video, and we'll catch you on one of those next ones. Take care.